Bob, thank you so much for that introduction, and I want to thank you for your work in Washington, D.C. You know, the thing that we all know about Bob is that he has been slaving in the vineyard for many years on the issue of a balanced budget. And when you stop and sum up all the problems that are coming home to roost for this country, not only for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren, not being able to balance our budget, I think, is the key to why we haven't been able to do that. And I would submit to you that that's the number one thing that we've got to do in Washington. Bob, thank you for your leadership, thank you for your friendship, and thank you for being here today. I wanted to also thank Steve, thank you for your kind words. Scott, Matt, thank you all for being here today. I tell you, I appreciate the hard work that you all have just done in Richmond on our behalf. I can tell you that the good work that was done right here actually was done a couple of doors over, but the great work that was done here in Candler Station was responsible for making sure this last session that we had a great, strong majority in the House of Delegates and a great majority in the State Senate. And I think that we saw the results of that hard work this session. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Whenever people say, well, how in the world are you going to fix what's going on in Washington? I always say, all you got to do is look at how they do their business in Richmond. We balance the budget, we get our job done, get it done quickly, we get it done seriously, and thank you for your service, gentlemen, and I appreciate that, and I thank the work of Kathy Byron as well. I am pleased to announce my re-election campaign today as we have traveling across this sprawling new 5th District, which runs from Danville all the way up to Warrenton and Fauquier County. I have to begin by saying how grateful I am to my family, my wife Kathy and our 3 boys, for all of what they do to make this possible. Clearly, this is a decision, as I know, with all of the elected officials that are here. These are decisions that you make every time your election comes around. It's a thing you have to sit down with your family and figure out whether or not you can continue to do this. And I'm grateful to my wife because she is the one who makes it happen. I'm also grateful to the other members of my family. I was telling this morning about my grandmother, who's 90 years old. She still sits in the back row of the Chatham Presbyterian Church in Chatham, and I was there yesterday, and she said, Robert, she says, when are we going to start putting those signs up? And her MO is she can't drive anymore, but she'll get somebody to drive with her. She'll load the back of the car up with signs, and she will go drive around, and she'll stop and say, let's put one there. And so I told Gigi we're going to start getting the signs up as soon as possible, and that's what it's going to take to win this election. Most of all, though, I want to thank each of you all who are here, and each of you all who delivered for us such a strong victory in November 2010. You know, the work that was done right here in these spaces was the work that delivered a resounding victory and sent a strong message to Washington that we can't keep doing what we're doing. You can't continue to borrow 40 cents on every dollar you spend. You can't continue to accumulate a $16 trillion debt. You can't continue to pass bills like the President's health care law that make it impossible for businesses to succeed and are an affront to our individual liberty. We can't continue to do that. You can't keep smothering small business, the small farm, with regulation after regulation that are unnecessary, so many of them, and make it impossible for them to succeed. And if you want to know why we haven't been able to see a full recovery in this country, it's because the voice that you all gave back in 2010, and we went to Washington with that message. The problem is that we've gotten there. We've acted on the House side. If you look at the bills, and Bob had the card, you look at the bills that we have put in and gotten off the House floor and sent to Harry Reid time after time after time. They would reduce the debt in this country. They would eliminate the deficit in this country. They would eliminate the President's health care law. It would eliminate Obamacare. It would instead employ a common sense domestic energy policy in this country. A time when we have $4 a gallon for gasoline. Reduce the unnecessary regulations. Those are the things that we have fought for because you sent us to Washington to do that. But the problem is we cannot get our legislation through the Senate. And we have had absolutely no cooperation. With all due respect to our President, we have had no leadership from the White House in solving these problems. So, you might think that all is lost. But I would say to you, no, not all is lost. We have everything to gain. On November 6th, 2012, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to take back our country once and for all. We have an opportunity to repeal Obamacare. We have an opportunity to balance our budget like it should be, to eliminate the deficit, to reduce the regulatory burden on our small businesses and our farms. We have an opportunity to enact a common sense domestic energy policy that says we've got energy here in this country and we need to responsibly take advantage of all of it. Why in the world can't we do what the Virginia legislature has asked us to do time and time again, and that is explore off the coast of Virginia? Why can't we speed the permitting process in the Gulf of Mexico and use those resources the Lord has blessed us with? Why can't we explore and take advantage of the resources in Alaska? Because the United States Senate says no, and because this president says no. And what has happened in the last 3 years on gas prices alone? They've doubled in the last 3 years. Now, with all fairness, you can't blame all of that on one president, but good gracious, over the last 3 years, why couldn't we be making progress to having a common sense energy policy that would produce jobs immediately, it would produce thousands of jobs in the long term, reduce and give us stable prices for fuel, and finally make it so that we don't have to rely on foreign dictators for our energy resources. So I look at this election as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us all to work as hard as we worked in 2010. And don't forget the work that was done here, the thousands and thousands of phone calls made the difference in our election. We were outspent by $1 million. But the work that was done right here, the phone calls, the signs, the contacting your neighbors, all of that hard work resulted in a victory. Even though we were outspent, we still had the grassroots effort because people care. They care about the future of their country. They care about their children and grandchildren, and that's what's going to drive this election. And at the end of the day, we will know. We will know because the Constitution gives us the pathway. Our founders, in their brilliance, gave us the pathway to make this right. We have elections every 2 years. We know what to do, and if we do it, I believe that we will guarantee that our children and grandchildren will have a very, very bright future. So I want to thank each of you. I wanted to make some introductions before we conclude here. Sean Brown in the back, if you'll raise your hand, Sean, please. Sean Brown is going to be our campaign manager. He'll be working out of our Chatham office. I don't know if John Finley is still here. There's John Finley, and he will be working on the south end of the 5th District. We also have a coordinator for the north end of the district. But we look forward to working with each of you all as we go forward and make sure that that Election Day 2012 is a big day. One thing that I like to point out is our last election was a huge election. I would suggest to you that this election is even more important. But there was only one place. There was only one place that the President of the United States decided to campaign. Out of all the congressional districts, not the Senate districts, but of all the congressional districts, there was one place that President Obama chose to campaign, and that was in the 5th District. 3 days before the election, we're going to invite the President to come back because we hope that he will campaign again for us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Congressman Hurt, and we will do all we can to make sure that you are back in the 5th District again for the next 2 years.